Hello and welcome to the Embrace the Mud podcast. Today we are going to be exploring one of my absolute favorite topics, and that is expectations. If you want to avoid disappointment in relationships, shouldn't you just avoid expectations? And if you have them, how do you know if your expectations are reasonable or if they're too high or too low? These are some of the questions we're going to be answering today, so let's dive in. You are listening to the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, and life-giving relationships. Why focus on relationships? Because the quality of our intimate partnerships and close connections influences our health, happiness, and longevity more than anything else in our lives. Relationships matter a lot. So together, let's jump into the mud, aka our messy relationships, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and create an enriching environment where strong relationships can take root. I am your grateful host, Dara Posner. I am a relational disaster working toward relational mastery. I am also a positive psychology coach, a relational mindset coach, a blogger, and now a podcaster. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships. If you are a fan of this podcast, please subscribe, follow, like, review, and share. Your engagement in this way is crucial to the success of the podcast, and I appreciate you taking just a few seconds to support my mission, which is to help people like you flourish in life and love. Expectations profoundly influence the dynamics of our relationships. And there's this notion that I've come across lots of times out there that says, you know what, if you don't want to be disappointed, just don't have any expectations. Interestingly, though, research reveals a compelling truth, and that is that those with well-articulated expectations tend to be treated more positively by their partners than those without expectations. So I happen to be one of the people who is in the camp of absolutely have expectations. This is good for you and the safest way to approach relationships. The research suggests that expectations, when managed consciously, can serve as a really great guide in the realm of connection. Yet the delicate art of expectation management is where the real challenge lies. It's the unspoken, unaddressed expectations that can morph into silent resentments, casting shadows on the very connections that they were meant to enhance. So let's look at the anatomy of a healthy expectation. There are three parts as far as I'm concerned, and the first is clarity. You want to explicitly articulate your expectations. This lays a solid foundation for understanding of what is expected inside of a relationship. It's a lot like just providing a roadmap for your partner, that tells them which way you want to go in terms of how to provide for your emotional and other needs. Beyond clarity, we need mutual agreement. It's not enough to say, I have this expectation, but we need mutual buy-in, and this is the second pillar. The beauty of expectations is magnified when both people are on board. These are only reasonable and feasible when both people agree to them. And it's the shared understanding that transforms expectations into something collaborative, which is essential for secure functioning relationships. We need that collaboration. But the journey still does not end there. To foster true fulfillment when it comes to expectations, there has to be a demonstrated capacity on both sides to be able to fulfill that expectation. And this is where expectations meet reality, and this is where the rubber hits the road. Practical fulfillment is the litmus test for the sustainability of expectations in a relationship. So let's navigate the nuance of this a little bit. We can picture love languages, something that most of us are familiar with, right? This is a poignant example of how the desire to meet expectations can sometimes grapple with practical challenges. A partner may sincerely want, for instance, to shower us with words of affirmation, but they might, stumble because verbal expression is just not something that comes very naturally to them. In these instances, the path forward involves a delicate dance, one where we may need to adjust our expectations, allowing alternative expressions of love to be just as fulfilling for us. So this calls for a psychological flexibility that acknowledges the uniqueness of each relationship. We can do our best to be explicit, to form mutual agreements, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, is there capacity for fulfillment? And if not, can we be flexible? So as we wade through these intricacies of expectations, let's keep in mind their transformative potential. Mindfully managed expectations become catalysts for stronger, more resilient connections. Expectations are a good idea, but you have to approach them in a way where you kind of hit these 3 marks. Make them explicit. Make sure there's mutual buy-in, and make sure there's a capacity for fulfillment. All right, that wraps up our episode for today. If you have struggled in the area of expectations, it could be because you're not really super clear on your needs. Our expectations are born out of the clarity that we have about what we fundamentally need emotionally. And I have created a workbook called the No More Unmet Needs Workbook to help you get clear on what your needs are, also on what your partner's needs are, and how to communicate them effectively. You can find a downloadable version of the No More Unmet Needs Workbook at mudcoaching.com. And podcast listeners only get a discount code, which is GOODLOVE, GOODLOVE, all one word, and you'll get 10% off. Please also connect with me on Instagram. My handle there is @EmbraceTheMud, and I love creating educational and inspirational content for you there. And sign up for my newsletter, Questions for the Soul, at mudcoaching.com. If you like journaling, this is the newsletter for you. I send you a weekly prompt to help guide you inwardly and to connect you with your values, your desires, and your needs. I'll be back very soon with another episode here on the Embrace the Mud podcast. In the meantime, please remember, you are wired for love and connection. You are capable of love and connection. You are worthy of love and connection. I'll see you soon.